Sure. Thank you for joining us.
I apologize. My mic's kind of bugging out. Does it sound okay or is it tripping?
Your sound is
Sounds fine.
great. Well, what have you
Okay.
got for us today?
Yeah, I kind of have a question for T-Jump, but I think anybody here can kind of jump in on it if they feel the need to or they have a personal opinion on it. T-Jump, I've kind of watched your
That's a
last
good pun.
discussions.
Anybody can jump in. Haha.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is good.
Okay, but T-Jump, from watching your you know the legend guy that you moved off stage. I mean, I have no issues with either of you. I just want to ask a question about it personally. Recently I've been looking into epistemology, and I recently started taking the topic of whether do you believe classical logic is objective in a sense, and how would you essentially prove that?
I think logic is a language that humans made up in order to describe reality, and it's
Okay, then.
possible that
Mm,
there's a correct logic. Like there's a page on the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy titled "The Right Logic?" Question mark. Is there a logic that accurately describes reality? I think probably. I think I like standard logic, so I just guess standard logic does it, but I don't know.
I mean, I probably should ask more of a broader question. I guess the question I'm trying to get across is, I think in a sense to ground some form of modality or possible worlds, you kind of have to have a foundation of epistemology. Would you agree?
Sure. I mean, I guess what you
Okay.
mean by
So
ground. I don't know
I'm
what
just
you
going to
mean by
ask you,
grounding.
what grounding in epistemology do you have to argue that there is some possible world in existence, or possible, or I should say, not in
I'm not
existence,
sure
but
what you mean. So I grant possible worlds as a philosophical argument. I don't
yeah.
know if there are actually philosophical worlds or if there's like a necessitarian only one possible world. Like I don't actually
Mm.
care. So I
Oh,
only use
okay.
possible worlds like a philosophical argument. I don't
Well,
think
I
they
mean,
actually
I
exist.
guess let me explain what I'm
I'm not
trying
a
to
modal
convey a
ontic realist.
bit. Let me kind of explain what I'm trying to convey a bit more. You're a moralist, obviously, so you believe in some sense there is some universal truth about morality. And what I'm
Yeah.
gonna try to say is that I don't believe a universal truth exists, and I'm making an ontological commitment to speak with you, but I don't believe the language I'm presenting to you is true itself. So I'm asking you,
What
what
do you mean when
grounding?
you say you don't believe a universal truth exists? Like you mean like
Um, I'll give an example that I watched of a debate a while back. Me and you, in an empirical sense, you can look through a scope and you could see the moon. Now, I can look through the scope and say, "Oh, well, I see the moon," but that does not mean entirely that I believe it's there. I can have false sensory data, and it once again calls into question whether empirical data is correct or if it's accurate.
yeah, who cares about empirical data? So
Okay, then let's go to rationalism.
can you believe you exist and be wrong?
Be exist and be wrong.
Can you believe that you exist and be wrong?
Well, I can be a brain in a vac, but if that's what you mean by
You still
exist, I
exist.
guess.
It still exists. So
Yeah.
is it can you believe you exist and be wrong?
Yes.
Okay, how?
I mean, okay, well, you saying be wrong in the sense of existence?
Yes. So I don't care how
Well,
you exist. Brain in a vat, part of Venus's electrical signals.
yeah,
I don't care. I don't care
yeah,
how you exist. Makes no difference. You existing means you have some kind of conscious experience, and that conscious experience must be something in reality caused by I don't care what. Brain in a vat, electrical farts, matrix. Don't
okay,
care.
yeah,
Doesn't matter. You still exist. That conscious experience is an existing thing that was created in some
mhm,
sense. Can you
yeah,
believe your conscious experience exists and be wrong? The correct answer
okay,
is
so,
no.
wait, could I kinda because there's a few things you said on that that I kinda have a few issues with, so I was gonna try to address a bit of the statement you said, well, a few statements actually, but, okay, well,
Okay. All right. All right.
no,
Let,
go ahead. Uh, Randolph, are you okay? What's going on?
sorry,
Uh,
that my fault. I thought you guys were talking over each other. Something
oh,
started on the background. My
n
apologies. Go ahead.
you're good, you're good. Okay, so I get it. You're trying to ground there's some form of knowing that we exist. I think that if me and you were to come into a conversation, we both are already kind of
I don't
accepting.
care if you know. I don't care if you know. So,
Well, I'm agreeing. I know that I exist 100% and you
okay,
exist. But the
cool.
problem is, though, is
Well,
I'm
isn't that wouldn't
explaining.
that qualify as like a universal truth that you said the
But
wrong
that's
thing?
not word. That's no, no. It's a considerable truth, not an objective truth. I can say I know it, but I
What?
can be wrong in the sense of knowing it.
What? How is that not an objective truth?
Because, an example, I could say I exist, but the problem is I have no reasoning of why I exist. If you remain skeptical at some point in time, we have to
You
bite
don't
the
need that
bullet
for
to
an
have the
objective truth.
conversation. You do.
No. No,
What do you think an objective truth is?
objective truths are true independent of whether anybody knows it or has any reason to know it. They're just things that are true
Okay,
about
then,
reality.
so you're asking me to give a subjective perspective. You're asking me to give something subjective and saying, "Is it objective because it's subjective?" That's just contradictory in itself.
No. No, 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 no. So you can know an objective truth about the universe. That's true for everybody else, whether or not they know it, which is that you exist. Your existence is an objective truth about reality that's true for everyone, whether or not they know it, including you. It's true for you, even if you don't know it. So this truth is true independent of every opinion, of every subjective fact in the universe. They are all
And
irrelevant. This is
mhm,
an objective truth. You
yeah,
exist.
and my next question is gonna be, like, teach. I'm not even on some, like, really ratting or being dishonest type shit. A genuine question. Tell me how you would go about that to prove that.
I don't care if I can prove it. I literally
Oh,
just said it doesn't
so
matter if you can prove it.
it's not a universal truth if it's not just subjective reasoning.
Again, so it's objective. Like you can't believe you exist and be wrong. Therefore, you objectively exist. Since you believe you exist, you exist. And you exist objectively. Even if you didn't believe you exist, you'd still exist. Even if nobody
Okay.
else believes you exist, you would still exist.
There's
Even
a
if no one
few
could prove you exist,
mhm,
you still exist. So
yeah.
the subjective truths of anyone's minds, whether they have knowledge, whether it can be proven, irrelevant, you still exist. That's an objective truth for everyone and
There's a
everything
few
in the
issues
universe.
with that because I can believe in, "Oh, there's a rocket flying, turtle flying in the sky." It doesn't mean in a sense that it's actually true. I can try to apply some type of reasoning of why it is the case, but once again, no matter what, in a scope, you can also say the equal interpretation is, "Oh, well, you could have been inaccurate." Every single possible thing you could say to me of why something is a universal truth, I can just say an exact counter to it, and it would just be called into question and result in some probability form and not definitively.
I'm not giving you justifications for why that's an objective truth. I'm giving you
So
the
there's not a universal
definition of what
truth.
an objective truth is. An objective truth is something that's true independent of any opinion, right?
Mhm.
So if you think you exist and it's not possible for you to think you exist and be wrong, that
I didn't agree with that.
means by definition, you exist objectively.
Well, that's already
So
begging the question because I called in the
what
question in the first place whether I can say I exist or try to believe I exist, but a statement being true is not
I don't
determined by structural integrity at all.
this has nothing to do with structural integrity. This is the logical entailment of
Well,
the
I'm
statement. If
okay,
you
then you're
believe you exist, now I don't care if you believe you exist. I don't
mhm,
care if you're capable of believing you exist.
okay,
If
continue.
anyone believes they exist, is it possible for that same person to be wrong? The answer is no. It is
Yes.
literally impossible.
Well, because that's begging the question, because you're already saying, "Oh, it's objective," because I can't give reasoning because it's mine independently, but the problem is for us to say something is objective, we have to have a reasoning of why it fits that category in itself, and you're completely just missing that point.
What? What?
Yes? Like, what?
No. No, no. So
So I can just say it's objective, you're wrong.
if someone believes they exist, can they be wrong? The answer is no. They can't be wrong. They must exist in the first place in order to have the belief that they exist. Therefore, if someone believes they exist, objectively they exist because they must. They must exist first to have beliefs. That's a logical entailment. And so it doesn't matter. Like everything could be wrong with their brain. They could be Descartes' demon could just make everything with their
Yeah.
brain wrong and they would still not be wrong that they
Okay,
exist. They would still be right because in order to have beliefs, you must exist first.
okay.
And existence in that case is objective by
Now
definition.
mhm, there was something you said in that that I kinda wanted to talk about, but it's because you're kind of appealing to more of a classical approach of why something is like, necessary, and I was already calling the question whether logical is universal in a sense.
Okay, well then you'd have to answer the question. Can someone believe they exist and be wrong?
And I already said that that can be the case, yes.
How?
Because in the first place, at some point in time to have a conversation, we have to bite the bullet for language, but it doesn't mean it's true in a sense of accordance to reality.
Yeah, so I'm asking you, how in reality is it possible to believe you exist while not existing?
That's why I'm saying I'm disagreeing with the laws of thought itself.
Okay, so explain how is it possible?
I believe there's things in reality that exist that make us where we can have a state of non-existent and existent at the same exact time.
Like 0 sense.
Right.
0
Because
sense.
it's not logical, it's attacking the logical approach.
Right, so you can't give a coherent logical explanation of how it's possible to believe you exist and be wrong.
Well, because Tjump, you keep going backwards and saying, "Oh, well, it's dependent upon classical logic position," but I'm
No,
calling into
this
question
is
what the
true in
laws
the
of thought
case of
are
all
true.
logics. Non-standard
Okay,
logic
prove
grants
it
this,
in
many valued logic grants this, quantum
whoa,
logic
that's not
grants
how that
this.
works. That's not
Yes,
true.
it is. Yes, it
That's
is.
not true. Can I prove
It
that's not true,
is.
please?
Go ahead.
Okay, so in many value logic, we can just say that there's different fundamental truths besides true or false. You keep accepting some binary or bivalent logic. That's just entirely disappoint. That entirely
No,
erases the point of saying many valued logic.
no.
Yes.
A many
You want the
value logic doesn't
definition?
mean that it's always the case that there are only not true or not false statements. There can still be true statements in many valued logic.
Hold up. Do you want me to define many valued logic in a way? Because I feel like we're like defining this really wrong.
Okay, so if you don't know this, in many valued logic, having all of the possibilities be true and having a true statement is definitely possible in many valued logic. Do you not know this?
That's not what I'm attacking. You're kind of just jumping around what I
That is
attacked
literally
again.
what you're
Yeah,
attacking here.
that's
So
not what I
it
did.
is possible to have a true statement in many valued logic. You can have
Can
a
I give
true statement.
clarity? Can I give clarity to my position,
But
please, T-Jump, before we go any
no,
further?
no,
Oh, okay, then so
because
if you don't know
you're
my
not
position, how are you
understanding. So
attacking it?
many valued logic says there's multiple possibilities, right? True and
It says
false
there's
aren't
some
the only two possibilities. There's
okay,
lots of
continue.
middle grounds,
Mhm.
right? Does that mean there
Yes.
can be true statements?
You could say it can be, but doesn't mean it is true statements. That's what I'm
No, no, no,
attacking.
no. You're not.
I'm
So
saying
in many
yes.
value, stop. Yes, in many value logic, there can be true statements that are just true.
Mhm.
Period. Full stop.
But I'm
And
saying that
there are going to be certain statements that are going to be true. Full period. Right? In
but
many value logic, there are true
that's
statements,
where
and this is going to
you're
be one of them.
go ahead.
This
Mhm.
is going to be one of them. This is the one
Okay,
of they
well, let me
grant.
attack well, I'm gonna just apply the possibility and like, "Oh, well, why can't it just be some form of excluded middle where it's a logical contradiction?" And what are you gonna do then?
Logical contradiction that I believe I exist without existing.
Mhm. So it's just I can say it's like I'm trying to question classical logic itself by using many value logic, which you accepted. So I don't have to just
Yes.
appeal to some
Because
binary or bivalent
the
logic.
actual philosophers who actually accept many valued logic grant what I'm saying. Like, yes, that is true. Happy to
Well,
grant
I
that's
can say
true.
that it doesn't result in true or false. It results in the excluded middle. I can just argue that, and you can't get out of it.
Well,
Like not at all.
go ahead and write a paper explaining how using many valued logic someone can believe they exist and be wrong. Publish the paper, and
Well,
then
that's not
I
what
will
I'm
take your
doing.
argument seriously.
Wait, no, no, no. That's not. That's you. That's why I'm saying I tried to give clarity to that position a minute ago, but you kind of said no. You don't want me to give it.
Okay, so let me
I'm not
clarify my argument
saying.
here. My argument
Wait,
here is that
what?
you know nothing about many valued logic. You are trying to apply it inappropriately. You don't understand what you're doing. And if you think you
Hmm.
do, then please publish a paper where you actually talk to philosophers who do know what they're talking about, who can explain this to you better than I can, because you
Okay.
don't.
T-Jump. I feel like we're kind of misinterpreting what I was saying. I'm saying that someone can say, "Oh, they exist," but for them to exist, they must have the thought they exist. And I'm saying, "Oh, well, in that case, I'm saying no," and it results in a logical contradiction. If it's a logical contradiction, it's dealing with something outside of just the basic binary values, which I can just say, "Oh, well, that can just result in some form of pluralistic position. It could result in some position of many value logic being the excluded middle." I can just argue that, and I'm calling into question logic by
You
doing that, and you're
can't.
not
No,
grounding
you
it.
can't. You can't. So
Yes, I
you don't
can. I'm
understand.
literally doing
No, no,
it.
stop, stop. Listen, listen, listen. So
What?
you don't understand many valued logic, and if
I do.
you when
I
you
can define
try,
it for you if
you
you
don't.
want.
You don't. So
I
if
do.
you think you can, then you need to
Mhm.
publish a paper where actual professors can evaluate this and tell you why you have no idea what you're doing. And if
So
you get it
you can't
published,
defend
and they're like,
this argument
sure, sure.
in
No, no,
simple terms.
I've already defeated you on this. Like
No, you haven't. You
professors
lost,
usually,
like,
I have.
easily.
Stop talking. Stop talking. Don't interrupt me again, or I'm going to kick you off the stage. Professors
Mhm.
who understand many value logic, I've talked with them on this. They grant me. They say, yes, you are correct, T-Jump. You are correct in every case in this one. And so what you're saying doesn't accurately represent many value logic. You have no idea what you're
Just
talking about. Your head
okay.
is up your ass. So if
Okay.
you think you have a new
Mhm.
understanding of many value logic that goes beyond all of the professors I've talked to,
Yeah.
then you need to publish a paper on this and just get it accepted by the academic authorities that say, yes, in many valued logic, you can think you exist while not existing. Go for it. And once you do that, then I will look at your paper and try to understand this, because you have I'm fairly certain you have no idea what you're talking about, and you're
T-jump.
just taking a broad concept of many valued logic and
Mhm.
trying to apply it to things that it does not apply to, and you have no idea what you're doing. So if you think you
That's
do,
not
publish a
the
paper.
argument, T-jump. Like,
It
I'm not trying
is.
to, like,
It
cut you
is.
off, but that's not the ar well, you can't sit here and say, "Oh, it is the argument," if I'm saying it's not the argument. I'm the one literally giving you the
What?
argument.
What?
Like, "Can I
What?
please address my point, and then you can attack it?" Like, tell me how it's wrong.
Okay.
Because
So
you
the
asked me
question
the
was, is can you
question.
believe you exist and be wrong?
Mhm. And
Can you
I'm
believe you
saying
exist?
if
And
I
you're
was to
saying
say
yes.
no wait, if I was to say no, it will result in a logical contradiction. If it's a
Right.
logical contradiction, it does not just appeal to some basic binary approach, which means it could be any of the possible truths outside of just true or false,
Right. So you're
which
saying
calls into
yes.
question classical logic. Yes, 100%.
You're wrong. That's not how many-valued logic
attack
works.
it.
Go publish a paper.
Okay. So no refutation. I'll just leave. I'm good,
I've
bro.
already refuted it. Many-valued
You
logic
didn't. You didn't
grants this
understand my
is true.
position. You didn't understand it at all.
Okay, goodbye. So, many-valued logic grants this. No, you cannot believe you exist to be wrong, even in many-valued logic. If you think that's incorrect, go publish a paper on it. Until then, don't bother me. Next.
Yeah. So next is Grim.